We've seen a lot of Frankenstein's monster in movies and TV shows, but you know what? Not many people know how the creator of the monster described him in his appearance. So, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus describes the monster with flowing black hair, black lips, yellowish skin barely covering his muscles and arteries, and a wrinkled, lean complexion. In the novel, the monster deliberately kills William Frankenstein by strangling him. Initially, he sought William's friendship, believing the boy's innocence and lack of prejudice might make him accepting of his deformity. The monster hoped to educate William as his companion to ease his loneliness. However, William reacted with fear, calling the monster a hideous wretch and threatening to inform his father, M. Frankenstein. Upon learning that William was Victor Frankenstein's relative, the monster, driven by rage and a vow of vengeance, declared him his first victim. He silenced William by strangulation, feeling a twisted triumph in causing Victor despair. Later, Victor Frankenstein describes how the monster killed Elizabeth in a similar manner, leaving the murderous mark of his grasp on her neck. So that's basically who Frankenstein's monster is. Now that we've got that clear, let's continue with our video and explore the 10 best versions of the modern literary monster who's become more of a monster from folklore. Before we get into our exploration though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. So thank you. Let's begin. Boris Karloff in Frankenstein, 1931, and Bride of Frankenstein, 1935. The 1931 Frankenstein tells the story of Henry Frankenstein, a scientist who, with his assistant Fritz, assembles a human body from parts of deceased people. Intent on creating life, they accidentally use a criminal's brain. Despite warnings from his fiancée Elizabeth and others, Henry brings the creature to life during a storm. The monster initially shows childlike innocence, but becomes violent when mistreated. After killing Fritz and Dr. Waldman, it escapes and inadvertently drowns a young girl named Maria. The villagers form a mob to hunt it down, and the pursuit leads to a windmill where the monster is trapped as it burns down, seemingly perishing in the flames. In the sequel, titled Bride of Frankenstein from 1935, the monster survives the fire and continues to seek companionship. Dr. Pretorius, a former mentor of Henry, persuades him to create a mate for the monster. Meanwhile, the creature learns to speak and briefly finds friendship with a blind hermit, but this solace is shattered by fearful villagers. The bride is brought to life but rejects the monster. Heartbroken, the creature decides to destroy himself, the bride, and Dr. Pretorius, but he allows Henry and Elizabeth to escape. Boris Karloff's portrayal of the monster in these films is iconic. Unlike other depictions, Karloff brings depth and empathy to the character. His physical performance, especially that stiff gait and those expressive gestures, convey the monster's inner turmoil. The initial scenes where the monster appears are especially memorable because Karloff's eyes create an immediate sense of both fear and pity. Karloff's ability to evoke sympathy for the monster is something that can't be stressed enough. In Bride of Frankenstein, the scenes with the blind hermit show the creature's longing for friendship and understanding. The monster attempts communication, and his simple expressions like friend, good, explain just how innocent he is. The films themselves have had a lasting impact on the horror genre. Director James Whale's use of lighting, set design, and music creates an atmosphere that has influenced countless movies since. The themes of playing God, the consequences of creation, and the search for identity are explored with depth and complexity. In fact, the birth scene of the monster is one of cinema's greatest moments. The dramatic use of lighting and the exaltation of Henry Frankenstein as he brings his creation to life remain powerful. Karloff's subtle movements as the monster awakens convey a sense of wonder and confusion, setting the tone for his character's journey. Additionally, Karloff's interpretation set a standard for future portrayals of Frankenstein's monster. His performance sort of went beyond the makeup and became a study of misunderstood beings seeking acceptance. While later actors would take on the role, few would capture the same level of pathos and complexity. Robert De Niro in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, 1994. The 1994 film Mary Shelley's Frankenstein features Robert De Niro as Frankenstein's monster, and we gotta say, De Niro's performance is a particularly nuanced portrayal of the monster, remaining true to Shelley's original vision. Directed by Kenneth Branagh, the movie remains grounded in the book's plot and themes and emphasizes the creature's humanity, tragedy, and sorry existence. Of course, the story begins with Victor Frankenstein creating life using his professor's research. However, upon seeing the creature's hideous form, Victor abandons him. Frightened and isolated, Isolated, the creature steals Victor's coat and wanders the wilderness, only to later face rejection and hostility from the townspeople. He finds refuge in a family's barn and secretly observes them for months, learning to speak and read. Interestingly, De Niro studied several victims of stroke so as to master the portrayal of speech that is struggling to emerge. Regardless, despite the monster's attempts to connect with the family, he's chased away when they discover him. After finding Victor's journal, the creature learns of his creation and burns down the farm in anguish. Swearing revenge, he abducts Victor and demands a female companion, offering peace in exchange. Victor initially agrees but reneges when he learns the creature wants him to use Justine Moritz's body. Enraged, the creature murders Victor's fiancée, Elizabeth, by tearing out her heart. In grief, Victor attempts to reanimate Elizabeth but creates a disfigured entity who ultimately ends her own life. Pursuing the creature to the Arctic, Victor succumbs to exhaustion and dies. Mourning his creator's death, the creature immolates himself alongside Victor's body and rejects a ship captain's offer to join his crew. This was the tragic end of both creator and creation. Now, Shelley's Frankenstein has seen various adaptations, but Robert De Niro's portrayal is widely praised as the most faithful to the book. Mary Shelley's monster, described in her novel as having proportional limbs, flowing black hair, and pearly white teeth, was still a horrifying figure due to his yellowish translucent skin and lifeless eyes. These features made him a paradox of human-like beauty and unnatural grotesqueness. Despite these flaws, his appearance hinted at humanity, intensifying the tragedy of his rejection. De Niro's monster embodies this vision with a realistic, macabre design in the truest sense of the word. His discolored, stitched-together skin and damaged visage reflects a being cobbled from corpses and animated by lightning. While not entirely identical to Shelley's written description, De Niro's interpretation aligns more closely with the original text than most cinematic versions. Known for his roles in drama and crime films, De Niro's venture into gothic horror might seem unexpected, yet his performance in Branagh's adaptation is often regarded as one of the most compelling depictions of the monster. The film succeeds in exploring the complex dynamics between creator and creation, and does well to reflect upon the philosophical themes of the novel. Christopher Lee in The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. Set in 19th century Switzerland, The Curse of Frankenstein follows Baron Victor Frankenstein awaiting execution for murder. Narrating his story to a priest, Victor recounts his youth. At 15, he inherited his family's estate after his mother's death and hired Paul Krempe as his tutor. Together, they succeeded in reviving a dead puppy, which gave Victor the confidence to try and create a human from body parts. Paul reluctantly assists Victor's scavenging of corpses, but Victor's fiancée arrives and they run away. Victor constructs his creature using a robber's corpse and body parts sourced from charnel houses. For the brain, he murders Professor Bernstein, but damages it during a struggle with Paul. The revived creature is violent and psychotic due to its damaged brain. After killing a blind man, it's shot and buried by Paul. Undeterred, Victor revives it again. Justine, Victor's mistress, threatens to expose him, which leads him to have her killed by the monster. The creature later threatens Elizabeth. Victor accidentally shoots her and destroys the creature with fire, causing it to fall into a vat of acid. Denying Victor's claims, Paul refuses to testify on his behalf, sealing Victor's fate at the guillotine. Christopher Lee's portrayal of the creature was his entry into horror cinema. Born in 1922, his life before acting was equally compelling. Serving in World War II, Lee's military exploits, particularly his service with the Special Forces, greatly influenced him. He transitioned into acting in 1946 and began with minor roles, including Hamlet. Lee's breakthrough came in 1957 with The Curse of Frankenstein, his first collaboration with Hammer Films and actor Peter Cushing. Lee brought intensity to the role, despite his dissatisfaction with the heavy makeup and lack of dialogue. His performance, which focused more on the creature's physicality and tortured existence, redefined Mary Shelley's creation. The makeup was designed to avoid legal conflicts with Universal's Frankenstein, and hence it was crude yet effective. In fact, it banked more on the realistic side of things. Lee's movements, from his staggering walk to his struggle with basic actions, also helped the cause. The Curse of Frankenstein revolutionized horror cinema and introduced graphic depictions of Frankenstein's experiments while cementing Hammer Films' dominance in the genre. Peter Cushing's portrayal of Victor, a guy who oscillated between aristocratic charm and macabre obsession, was much appreciated by fans and critics alike. Critics initially condemned the film's gruesome visuals, but audiences embraced it, which led to massive box office success, and the film made over 70 times its production costs. The film set the tone for Hammer's horror area and established Lee as a horror icon. His partnership with Cushing continued with Dracula, further solidifying their legacy.
I am. You stitched me together from death and decay.
Luke Goss in the Frankenstein miniseries, 2004. In the 2004 Hallmark miniseries adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Captain Robert Walton went on an expedition to the North Pole in search of scientific fame. While trapped in ice, his crew rescued Victor Frankenstein, who was gravely ill. As he recovers, Victor recounts his life story to Walton. Born into a wealthy Geneva family in 1793, Victor loses his mother to scarlet fever and becomes determined to conquer death. At university, he studies under Professor Waldman and develops a method to imbue lifeless matter with life. Victor creates a being from corpse parts but is horrified by its appearance and abandons it. The creature, left to fend for itself, learns to speak and read by observing a family but faces rejection due to its appearance. After accidentally killing Victor's younger brother William, the creature confronts Victor and demands he create a female companion. Victor initially agrees but destroys the unfinished companion, fearing the repercussions. Enraged, the creature vows revenge and kills Victor's friend Henry Clerval and later murders Victor's bride Elizabeth on their wedding night. Consumed by grief, Victor pursues the creature to the Arctic. After Victor dies aboard Walton's ship, the creature mourns over his body and vows to end his own life, disappearing into the icy wasteland. As far as the small screen is concerned, the 2004 miniseries is recognized as one of the most faithful adaptations of Mary Shelley's novel, as it focuses on the story's dramatic and tragic elements over traditional horror. Luke Goss portrays the creature as an intelligent and articulate being, capturing the character's inner turmoil and desire for companionship. While Goss may lack the imposing physicality typically associated with the creature, his performance conveys the anguish and resentment that stems from his unnatural existence and societal rejection. Goss effectively illustrates the creature's complex motivations. The accidental murder of William was the first bit of unintentional violence, while the deliberate murders of Henry Clerval and Elizabeth show his descent into vengeful actions after continuous rejection. Critics note that while the miniseries remains true to the source material, this faithfulness doesn't always translate seamlessly to the screen. Some argue that Boris Karloff's casting, with its distinctive visual elements like the flat head and neck folds, offer a more impactful visual experience. Goss's creature, with minimal makeup and subtle physical alterations, lacks the visual distinctiveness that made earlier adaptations so memorable. Rory Kinnear in Penny Dreadful, 2014 to 2016. In the television series Penny Dreadful, Frankenstein's monster, portrayed by Rory Kinnear, is a central figure who goes by names such as John Clare and Caliban. Initially, he was an orderly at a mental institution who died under mysterious circumstances and left behind his wife Marjorie and son Jack. After his death, Dr. Victor Frankenstein resurrects him and educates the creature, introducing him to poetry and literature. In fact, the creature particularly admires the works of John Clare. However, as the creature becomes more violent and obsessive, Frankenstein abandons him out of fear. Feeling betrayed, the creature confronts Frankenstein after killing his latest creation, Proteus, and demands that a female companion be made for him. While awaiting his mate, he finds employment at the Grand Guignol Theatre as a stagehand, but longs to perform on stage instead. A misinterpreted act of kindness from an actress leads to rejection and a violent outburst, resulting in his dismissal. Despite his anger, he cannot harm Frankenstein and instead pleads for relief from his loneliness. Frankenstein agrees to create a mate and resorts to reanimating Brana Croft as Lily. However, Lily rejects the creature, which leads to further despair. In the final season, the creature regains memories of his past life and reunites with his family. His brief happiness is shattered when his son dies of the plague. When his wife urges him to resurrect their child, he refuses, unwilling to condemn his son to his own cursed existence. Heartbroken, his wife turns away from him, and he resigns himself to a life of solitude. Rory Kinnear's performance as Frankenstein's monster is hailed as one of the most authentic and profound interpretations of the character. Oh, and as a side note, we loved his performance in the ongoing Netflix show The Diplomat as the English Prime Minister. Coming back to our topic, unlike traditional depictions that focus on monstrous appearances, Kinnear's creature closely mirrors Mary Shelley's original literary description. He's got long black hair, pale skin marked by scars, and haunting eyes that reflect his sorrow and longing. Kinnear infuses the character with emotional depth and plays the creature as intelligent and articulate, yet burdened by his existence. Once again, Kinnear's monster struggles with the inner conflict of a being who desires companionship and acceptance, but is met with fear and rejection at every turn. Interestingly enough, Penny Dreadful expands on the creature's backstory by exploring his relationships and the remnants of his past life. We would even go so far as to say that Penny Dreadful's version of Frankenstein's monster feels like a breath of fresh air, and Kinnear's ability to convey deep and profound emotion through subtle expressions and dialogue brings a poignant realism to the role.
'Cause they might get hurt.
Peter Boyle in Young Frankenstein, 1974. In the early 20th century, Dr. Frederick Frankenstein served as an American physician who adamantly distances himself from his rather notorious grandfather, Victor Frankenstein. He even pronounces his surname Frankenstein. Engaged to a socialite named Elizabeth, Frederick learns that he has inherited the family estate in Transylvania. Upon arriving in Europe, he meets Igor, a hunchbacked servant whose grandfather worked for Victor, and an assistant named Inga. At the ancestral castle, Frederick discovers his grandfather's secret laboratory and becomes intrigued by his experiments on reanimating the dead. Deciding to continue this work, he and Igor retrieve a recently executed criminal's body. Igor is sent to fetch the brain of a renowned scientist, but accidentally damages it and replaces it with one labeled abnormal. Unaware of the mistake, Frederick implants the flawed brain into the corpse, thereby bringing the monster to life. The creature initially shows violent tendencies, but gradually becomes calmer under Frederick's guidance. The townspeople grow suspicious of Frederick's activities, and meanwhile, the monster escapes, leading to comedic encounters with the villagers, including a young girl and a blind hermit. In the end, Frederick transfers some of his own intellect into the monster, allowing him to integrate with society, while Frederick embraces his family's legacy. Peter Boyle delivers a memorable performance as the monster, as he aces physical comedy as well as moments of genuine emotion. His acting is both beastly and sympathetic and shows the creature's confusion and vulnerability. Boyle's expressive grunts and facial expressions convey a depth of character that resonates with the audience. The makeup design by William Tuttle was instrumental in creating the monster's unique appearance. Using green makeup to give Boyle's skin a lifeless look in black and white film, the team achieved a distinct visual style. Highlighting emphasized the creature's exaggerated forehead and cast shadows over his eyes. Aaron Eckhart in I, Frankenstein, 2014. In 1795, Dr. Victor Frankenstein created a living being by assembling parts from various corpses and bringing it to life. Repulsed by his own creation, he attempts to destroy it, but the creature survives and, in revenge, kills Victor's wife, Elizabeth. Pursuing the creature to the Arctic, Victor succumbs to the harsh conditions and dies. Returning to bury his creator, the creature is attacked by demons but is rescued by gargoyles named Ophir and Kezia. They introduce him to their queen, Leonore, who explains the eternal battle between gargoyles and demons. She names him Adam and offers him a place among them, but he chooses a solitary life armed with special weapons to defend himself. For 2 centuries, Adam lives in isolation, fending off relentless demon attacks. In the modern world, his existence draws the attention of the demon prince Nibirius, disguised as businessman Charles Wessex. Nibirius seeks to unlock the secret of reanimating corpses to create an army of possessed beings. He employs scientists Tara Wade and Carl Avery to replicate Victor Frankenstein's experiments. Realizing the impending threat, Adam allies with Tara to thwart Nibirius's plans, battling demons to prevent the resurrection of an unstoppable demonic force and protect humanity from destruction. Aaron Eckhart portrays Adam, a creature struggling with his purpose and identity. Drawn to the role by the character's inner struggle, Eckhart saw universal themes in Adam's quest for meaning that audiences could relate to. He appreciated the action elements and the unique world crafted by director Stuart Beattie, whom he praised for his storytelling ability and dedication to the project. To embody Adam, Eckhart connected with the character's sense of isolation and rejection. He likened Adam's anonymity and desire for connection to personal experiences of feeling unseen in crowded cities. Eckhart delved into Mary Shelley's original novel to capture the creature's essence, exploring the relevance of his existential questions in contemporary times. He viewed Adam as a survivalist shaped by abandonment, who evolves over 200 years into an articulate and skilled individual. Eckhart committed to bringing depth to the character and focused on the human aspects of a being considered monstrous. His performance highlights Adam's internal conflict between his inherent nature and his longing for acceptance. Schuler Hensley in Van Helsing, 2004. In 1887, Transylvania, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, with assistance from Igor and Count Dracula, succeeds in creating a living creature. When Frankenstein refuses to align with Dracula's malevolent intentions for the monster, Dracula kills him. The creature flees with Frankenstein's body to a windmill, but is pursued by an angry mob that sets the structure ablaze, seemingly destroying the monster. A year later, Gabriel Van Helsing, a renowned monster hunter employed by the Knights of the Holy Order in the Vatican, battles Mr. Hyde in Paris. Suffering Suffering from amnesia about his past, Van Helsing seeks redemption for his unknown sins. He's assigned to eliminate Dracula and protect the last descendants of the Valerius family, Anna and Velkin, whose ancestor had vowed to destroy Dracula to save their family from eternal damnation. Upon arriving in Transylvania, Van Helsing and his companion, a friar named Karl who invents weapons, join forces with Anna. Velkin has recently been bitten by a werewolf under Dracula's control. Van Helsing confronts Dracula's 3 brides, managing to kill one of them during a village attack. Investigating further, they discover Dracula's plan to use Dr. Frankenstein's machinery to animate his countless undead offspring. Stephen Sommers' Van Helsing pays homage to classic monster films, though it faced critical and commercial challenges upon release. A highlight of the film is Schuler Hensley's depiction of Frankenstein's monster. Hensley infuses the character with intelligence, empathy, and a touch of eloquence, aligning more closely with Mary Shelley's original product than typical cinematic versions. The monster's design nods to the classic universal aesthetic, but introduces modern elements: towering stature, greenish-blue skin, visible scars, and metallic components. Hensley's performance renders the creature sympathetic and endearing, making audiences invested in his fate and adding depth to the film's narrative. Randy Quaid in Frankenstein, 1992 TV movie. David Wicks's adaptation of Frankenstein begins in the Arctic, where a sea captain and his crew come upon Dr. Victor Frankenstein and his creature locked in a deadly confrontation. After rescuing the doctor, the captain hears the story of how Frankenstein created his creature in Switzerland in 1818. Unlike traditional versions, this creature isn't assembled from stitched body parts, but is a clone of Frankenstein himself, crafted through chemical and biological means. This method establishes a psychic bond between the creator and his creation. Randy Quaid portrays the monster in a way that diverges from previous interpretations. With a thick brow, a hairy face, and dressed in animal pelts, his appearance resembles a caveman more than a reanimated corpse. Quaid himself was surprised by the script, noting that the powerful opening caught him off guard but served as a compelling start to the film. The monster bears scars from acid burns, a result of his premature emergence from the creation process. Standing at 6'4", Quaid was probably the most gigantic version of the monster. He spent 5 hours in makeup each day. An important character who brought to light the monster's humanity is DeLacy, blind peasant played by Sir John Mills. DeLacy, unable to see the monster's disfigurement, treats him kindly and takes him into his home. To understand how others might perceive his character, Quaid walked the streets of Bratislava in full makeup. The intense reactions from people gave him insight into the monster's experience of isolation and rejection. For the monster's voice, he drew inspiration from the sound of a cow's call, practicing in the woods to capture the right tone. Throughout the film, the monster evolves into a being capable of expressing his thoughts and feelings eloquently, mirroring Mary Shelley's original portrayal. The story delves into themes of man's arrogance in attempting to play God and the consequences of creating light. Wicks's ending is both more violent and touching than in the novel, bringing the full circle back to the Arctic. Despite numerous film adaptations since the first silent version in 1910, few have followed Shelley's story as closely as this. Animated Frankenstein's Monster, voiced by Kevin James in Hotel Transylvania, 2012 through 2022. Frankenstein's monster, affectionately known as Frank, serves as Dracula's closest friend. Frank is depicted as a tall individual with light blue skin, green eyes, and black hair. He typically wears a blue suit, a white striped shirt, a red tie, and black boots. His limbs are disproportionately large compared to humans, highlighting his monstrous heritage. Despite his scary appearance, Frank is gentle, kind-hearted, and amiable. In the first film, Frank and his wife Eunice arrive at Hotel Transylvania by mailing themselves in packages to attend Mavis's 118th birthday celebration. This unusual mode of travel stems from Frank's intense fear of fire, which makes him avoid aeroplanes and trains due to potential fire hazards. Upon arrival, he greets Dracula and participates in the festivities. When Mavis announces that Dracula is allowing her to visit a human village, Frank is supportive yet cautious and reminds her to be wary of fire. As the story moves forward, a human named Johnny accidentally enters the hotel. Dracula introduces Johnny as Johnny Stein, claiming he's Frank's long-lost cousin. Although initially skeptical since he doesn't recall having such a relative, Frank embraces Johnny. Johnny's influence brings new excitement to the hotel, and Frank appreciates how he positively affects Mavis and the other guests. When the truth emerges that Johnny is actually human, Frank is shocked and feels a sense of betrayal. However, reflecting on his interactions with Johnny, he realizes that humans might not be as fearsome as he once believed. Aligning with Dracula's mission to reunite Johnny and Mavis, Frank becomes instrumental in locating Johnny before he departs on a flight. Attempting to clear a path through a crowd of humans at a monster festival, Frank Frank tries to scare them, but discovers that they're unafraid and even admire real monsters. Embracing this newfound acceptance, he helps reveal Dracula's true identity to the crowd, who then assist in reuniting the young couple. Frank's personality focuses on friendliness and loyalty. He values his relationships and considers Dracula and Mavis as part of his extended family. His easygoing nature makes him well liked among his peers. However, he has notable quirks, such as his overwhelming fear of fire. Even a small flame can induce panic, leading him to avoid traditional travel methods that might expose him to fire risks. This phobia is so profound that he prefers to ship himself in units via mail rather than flying or taking trains, a preference that occasionally frustrates Dracula, who finds it unnecessarily frugal. Another aspect of Frank's character is his aversion to trains, likely stemming from past encounters with Van Helsing. This adds humor to his travel choices, as he consistently opts for mailing himself in boxes. Despite these idiosyncrasies, Frank is adventurous and enjoys engaging in activities. He has a fondness for gambling, as seen during their visit to Atlantis in Hotel Transylvania 3, and possesses a hearty appetite highlighted in the second film. Frank's history with Dracula dates back to the 19th century. He played music alongside Murray, Wayne, and Griffin at Dracula's wedding to Martha. He was emotionally moved by the birth of Mavis, demonstrating his affectionate nature. Following Martha's untimely death and the destruction of Dracula's home by humans, Frank remained a steadfast friend, supporting Dracula as he built Hotel Transylvania into a sanctuary for monsters.
Is they? 'Cause they might get hurt.
Marvelous verdict! So there you have it. According to Marvelous Videos, these are the 10 best adaptations of Frankenstein's monster. If you feel that we missed one of your favorite portrayals, we'd want to hear it in the comments down below. Who knows, maybe we'll make a whole nother video on them down the line. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, this is Wizard Wheezy signing off for now. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.